Force is back.
Welcome to the Star Wars Collectors Archive podcast, hosted by Skye Payne, Fudd, and Stephen B. Danley. It's a Steve-A-Palooza as we tackle the B-Wing pilot in all of his chin-strapped, visored glory. Photo art, coin art, defining wood patterns, McQuarrie images, bootleg knockoffs, Underoos, and Skye discovers a swear word hidden deep within a vintage Kenner Star Wars commercial. All this and somehow more on the 111th Kivecast. It's the return of the B-Wing pilot.
Wampa Wampa!
Welcome to Kivecast 111.
Now, the number 111 is kind of causing me nightmares, Steve. That's what we call like the first semester of French. And I'm currently sitting on like 45 final exams plus Chapter 4 exams that I have to grade that have all been submitted to online drop boxes and scanned, and I have to figure out how to grade them and within a week. But Steve, do you know what I'm going to do instead of grading 111? I'm going to be editing 111. So that's what I'm excited for.
Oh, I don't know if excited is the right word you should use.
But Steve, this is so we've been doing this for 110 episodes now. We've had a couple. We had our 100th episode, made a big deal out of that. We had our 10-year anniversary, made a big deal out of that. But this, I think, is really important because it's the first real time that we are returning to a character, Steve. Who is the character of the month?
Well, I was going to say, we're going from the most interesting and the most important new character in Return of the Jedi with the Emperor to inarguably the absolutely least interesting and least important character. And that's the good old B-Wing pilot.
Yes, we're going back to where it all began with the B-Wing pilot. But Steve, this is the thing. I went back and I did something that I never do. I re-listened to an old episode.
The pilot episode?
Yes. I re-listened to the pilot, the B-Wing pilot episode.
Oh, no.
And my probably my favorite line in the history of the Kivecast is the following line, where I introduce my interview with you, and I say, I'm going to be interviewing this week's co-host. Now, of all the things that are great, my co-host for the week, Stephen B. Danley. That's how I say it. First, obviously, you're the co-host for forever. Second of all, it was never supposed to be a weekly show. I didn't have another co-host set up. It was just a complete and total mess. And it was a pretty good interview. We teased you a lot for liking a character that's kind of lame.
Yeah.
We talked about your nostalgia all throughout the episode, Steve. Like, I'm making fun of Boba Fett. There's a whole bunch of things that I would continue to do for a long time. I feel like we desperately need to do another Mandalorian wrap-up.
Yeah, I figured maybe now that the season's ending, we can do another winners and losers.
Yeah, it's Thursday, so the new episode, when we're recording this, is about to come out.
Yeah.
So we have yet to see that, of course, the Jedi who hears Grogu's call is, in fact, the B-Wing pilot. All time, deep sleeper cell, Order 66, the whole thing. He was there, in uniform. He just made his way through.
Yes. I have hope,
So, I think we should do that. I think there's another thing that we should probably talk about at some point. Someone who was going to be one of the rotating co-hosts before you just took over the job forever, before you Wally pipped it. Good friend of the show, Tommy Garvey, and his situation of being robbed. I don't mean to be weird, but I'd like to see how that situation resolves itself more. I don't think we can do anything to help him get his stuff back through the podcast. Although if you live in Florida, don't buy anything because it was stolen from Tommy.
Yeah.
But I am interested in sort of hearing that on the other side, so I don't think we're going to get too into that at this point.
Yeah.
Steve, do you know what I want this episode to be all about?
I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of ways it could go.
You don't want to say it. I want this to be all about my co-host for the week, Stephen B. Danley. I want this to be the absolute Steve-A-Palooza. Because this is the thing, Steve. What does everyone say about 2020?
Well, it's been a rough one.
Oh, it's the worst year ever. Worst. Let me tell you. You want to know how much Stephen B. Danley is wearing sunglasses and folding his arms at you? This is how much he's doing that. This is Steve's 2020. First kid born. Or was that late 2019? Was that 2020?
No, yeah. February 2020.
Okay. First kid born.
Yep.
Hot new job.
Yep.
Achieved. The thing that matters second most to him in the whole world is his basketball team wins a championship. Thing that means the most to him in the whole world, the Dodgers win a championship.
Yeah, it's
and he gets to close out the year on his favorite figure on the podcast that he has been running for the last 10 years. This has been the year of Stephen B. Danley. And in true Stephen B. Danley fashion, the best year for you is the worst year for everybody else.
Yeah, no, it is. It's been a B-wing pilot of a year. That's for sure.
It's just like I was thinking about that. I was like, because I mean, I actually feel the same way. Like my daughter lives with me full time now, which is awesome. I'm just still so happy in love with my wife.
Yeah.
And I love Corona means I don't have to drive, I don't have to commute. It's actually hasn't been that bad of a year for me either, but it hasn't been quite the bumper year as it has been for Stephen B. Danley.
Yeah.
But I will also say that when thinking about this character, because I'm talking a lot now because Steve did all the show notes. I'd never seen him so excited. He's just giggling everywhere. He just sent me all these pictures. So I'm just going to talk a little bit up at the front. And I'm going to put forth a kind of controversial opinion, Steve.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You are the number one focus collector in the world.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm going to tell you why. Nobody incarnates the character that they collect better than you. Okay? I've thought about this a lot, okay? I mean, if we take some other great focus collectors, right? Like Bill Cable, right? He's an amazing collector. He has a better collection than yours, 10 times the collection of yours. Been doing it longer, all that. Hooray for him, right? But he's not really a fussy polyglot, right? Like, maybe if I were the greatest C-3PO collector in the world, I'm kind of a fussy professor polyglot. But if I was also gay, which I'm not, it might make sense,
right,
and have my character. And like Bill McBride as Vader, I mean, yeah, he's a big guy and he's kind of imposing, but he's not a genocidal maniac. He's, he's pretty soft-spoken.
You lost all your long hair and all that, you got a lot less scruffy. So that
I lost all my long hair, and I'm not really defined by my sort of like anger or by my, I'm not like, like a real the Chewbacca collector has to have the long hair, has to be like not just like kind of tall, but like whoa, that dude's tall, right? And like. You know what I mean? Like sure. Like
you're on that evolutionary path though for the first many years that I knew you.
Right. I was sort of becoming like that, but and that's the thing. And a lot of other great focus collectors, they sort of sell out. And I mean, I think there are other collectors who do a very good job of being like the character they collect. I think Bruce White is very Princess Leia-ish in his sort of attitude and his that's a really good overlap there. But Steve, you absolutely win. You have an unwavering singular dedication to your character. You don't even have everything, which is just perfect because like the B-wing pilot, this unassuming figure, which is actually really cool, right? Like that's the thing. It's like you can laugh at it, but it's actually really cool. It's not Lobot where it's like, oh, it's funny, but it's not actually really cool. It's like it's a pilot figure. It's actually cool. It does something. It flies a ship. It's part of the rebellion. It's part of this cool thing.
Right.
It's quiet, but also a little bit flashy. It's surprisingly deep and interesting of a character to follow. So I'm going to put that forth as part of the Steve-A-Palooza closing out 2020, the year of the Brahi. That. And also, like, because there have been other people who have, like, collected small figures, smaller line figures, but they might, like, upgrade. Like, Matthias is great as a Sherpa character, but, I mean, the dude has, like, a Luke Skywalker focus that's better than my Chewbacca focus. So it's, like, you can't really, grow out that much, So,
yeah, it's funny, thinking about the whole focus thing too. I was thinking about this. It's come up many times, like where you have with Chewbacca, you have something it's very easily communicated, right? It's accessible to just about anyone.
Yeah.
But anytime I've tried to explain, like when someone asks, or when they ask Tesla, like, what is Steve into? Like, what kind of Star Wars stuff does she, what does he collect? And it is just like this horrible explanation followed by, okay. cool. It doesn't make any sense to just about anyone else. I think that's something that's also pretty satisfying, is that people that we know, and people that are in the collecting community or whatever, it means something to them. But once you step outside of that, it loses any context whatsoever. Which is, I don't know. There's something that I find kind of satisfying about that too, in a weird way.
I would argue that obviously you're describing yourself as well, as a person that's surprisingly cool, but you sort of have to know it, and yeah. So and also just as far as like the immediate association in the vintage hobby, like I just can't. I mean, okay, all right, sure. If you say Vader, you say Bill instantly, right?
Yeah.
But there's like a bunch of other people who collect Vader. And like, but like, and there are other people who collect B-Wing Pilot. And Steve, to your credit, you tried really hard to get them on the show. You told me, you gave me their names. You said Skye, there's Joe Illigan, there's Dave Longwater, there's Ian Sanderson. We should get them on. I said, no, I want this just to be Steve. Just give you the time as this week's co-host, Steve. Right. Next week,
we're just rebooting the whole podcast right now. This is
yeah.
Where it starts. Yeah. No, that's yeah. It's fun. I mean, I think about it in a lot of ways. It's like collecting that character. When I look at the collection, which I don't get to do very much anymore, unfortunately, but I just see it. It basically just, when I see something, it just represents someone I've made friends with, or I just think of the people, like where things come from, and right. I have to get that out there, because when I look at it, the bulk of it comes from just a handful of people that have become really close friends. I mean, Brock is kind of like the mentor and the conduit. He's the one that kind of helped me get it going and found a lot of things for me. And then like the 2D stuff, that the bulk of that is from Derek Ho, who, I mean, it's not an easy thing. Derek doesn't just let things go. So the fact that, that came from him means a lot. And then, the coin stuff from Gus and some other things. So I don't know. I really, it's a really, really positive association for me.
And again, I would say that keeping on the Steve-A-Palooza thing, that makes sense, because that's how you see the hobby, and that's part of the reason why you're like, you're not aggressive with people, you don't hound them, you don't say, oh my god, I need this, you don't say, that's mine already, you don't just know it, like, you just sort of hang back and everything comes to you, just like your awesome job, and your cool wife, and your great kid, and your amazing life, and Mookie goddamn bets. You just sit back and you're just like, oh, I'm just Steve. I don't know what's going on. You're like Darth Jar Jar in the back, like, oh, like you just, yeah, everything, yeah. So
I'm lucky.
Yeah. So I wanted to kind of start it off with that. And if you're just a new listener and you don't know who Steve is, you don't know who I am, listen to some old episodes, because it's a pretty fun show, and part of the fun dynamic is that like. The thing that I really want the most in this show is to make sure that people always like you more than they like me, and I've been doing a great job of that for 10 years, and so I'm gonna keep it up.
Oh, you've made progress, man. Come on, give yourself some. Yeah. Well,
all right. So let's actually talk about the Boeing pilot. Let's
the Boeing. Yeah.
Yeah, like the. Well, okay, this is the first thing, Steve.
Yes.
How is it a B?
Okay.
This has bothered me ever since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. How is the upside down cross, how is the T-wing a B-wing?
It's the thing that there is a logical explanation in the sense that it's not logical in the way that we're used to wings in Star Wars. I mean, they had it pretty straightforward with X and Y wing, and even the A wing a little bit. It makes sense, but this kind of gets right into the kind of the crux of the whole behind the scenes thing. Is that they had, going into production, they just labeled the two new ships, the A fighter and the B fighter, just kind of arbitrarily, and that's basically where the B came from. Are you
serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. It was A and B, so. Joe Johnston was kind of responsible for designing it, and it started off not looking nothing like a B at all. It was just this kind of flat, wide, horizontal, I guess blade maybe. I know they've used that, I think, like retroactively used blade as a B thing, but it had a pilot on one side, and then way on the other side it had a gunner. So they were completely separated on this stick, basically. It was called the Rebel Alien Fighter. That's all it was labeled as. Which it's silly, but it's Star Wars silly, I guess. And it progressed. It became the kind of thing that we know it is now. But yeah, it's just funny that there's a couple. Yeah, so there's the A and B fighter thing, but there's also the guy who really brought it to life in the model shop. It was this guy named Bill George, and he was an ILM model maker, and I guess he really put a lot of work into it and really loved it. And there was references to him getting the nickname or the Bill Wing fighters because he had so much to do with it. So I kind of like the Bill Wing as my favorite explanation. And it's cool.
Now this guy is. I'll show a picture on the enhanced version.
Yeah.
This guy is peak California, 1982.
Yes, absolutely.
He has got a blonde mullet, a red mustache, like a polo shirt that's too tight to show off his tanned guns.
Yes.
He is just like a cross between like Larry Bird, Ron Swanson. Yeah, wow. Have you met him, Steve? Have you talked to him?
No, man, that would be awesome. What's cool is he's still building models for ILM. He's still employed by them, and I think I sent you a picture of him in his kind of current day. He's just as cool. Like if you walk, he's like the California cool guy of today. Like if you saw his picture now, he seems like a pretty down to earth, nice guy. I'd love to meet him someday. But yeah, I like that story of his name kind of being attached to it as well. But yeah, it's fun. What's crazy though is like they put all this work into it and designing it, and then it was supposed to be really badass in the movie as well. There's this whole sequence, but the famous sequence where the A-wings blow up the Star Destroyer, right? It was storyboarded with B-wings doing it. Huh. So it's like, I guess because of the way it's weirdly shaped, it just didn't really work with the blue screen, and it just wasn't working out. So they basically scrapped it from the movie. But yeah, it was meant for greater things. It never really lived up to its potential.
We should at some point probably talk about Disney doing whatever the hell it's doing with all these Star Wars movies. And the next movie that's coming out, Steve, is going to be about pilots. It's going to be, the Rogue Squadron. So there's going to be B-Wings in there, and there's probably going to be a B-Wing pilot who has a name and a personality and everything. If that doesn't kill the saga worse than releasing Solo 8.5 minutes after Episode 8, I don't know what is. But oh boy, that was a good movie. Oh, what's on? Solo's on now? Yeah. So yeah, that could change. Although, Steve, do you really want to watch a movie about a bunch of pilots? I find pilots so boring. I mean, no offense.
Yeah.
But just as far as characters go, just like I know all the beats, like the danger, the risk, and the fights. It's just
right. You just start hearing the Kenny Loggins a little bit.
Okay, so then the B-Wing is never supposed to be a B. See, what's funny is I've known you for 15 years, and I've never asked you this question. I've never, this has kind of plagued me. My brothers and I must have talked about it, back in 1984 or something when we looked at the toy, and then just never brought it up again.
Right.
I remember looking at it thinking, is this supposed to be like a cursive B written?
Right. That was kind of my initial thought as a kid too, because I think the first time I actually saw the designation B-Wing was on the Micro Machines, because growing up, when you watch that movie on VHS and Paniscan, you're lucky to see a B-Wing for more than a couple seconds, and that's it. You don't even really notice that they're there. And so I got the Micro Machine and saw a B-Wing. I'm like, that doesn't really look like a B. No, it doesn't make any sense.
I think that it would have been a more popular toy and a more popular thing if they called it the T-Wing. But because
Probably.
the A-Wing does look like an A, and the X looks like an X, and the Y looks like a Y. Like, it would sort of fit and be nice.
It would fit the logic, but it's just, it's the B-side. It's the it's the leftovers. Yeah.
But I don't know. You're supposed to be driving the B-wing today. I'm supposed to be in the gunner.
Oh, man.
In the gunner spot on the other side.
Way on the other side.
That must be the worst part to be in because if the pilot gets shot, you're just like, well,
you're just
pew pew pew, and off into death.
Yeah, no. I guess it might be worth noting, the figure itself. I mean, that was, obviously where it all started for me. I didn't even know what a B-wing was growing up, but I like that the sculpt was it was one of Bill Lemon's sculpts. So it was done in acetate, which we've talked about many times on the show, but it's that he was a contract sculptor. He wasn't a Kenner employee, and his style was pretty distinct. They're pretty rigid looking figures. So you have, Leia Hawk, Deskbot Commander, Rebel Commando, and then when I started thinking about it, it makes a lot of sense that he was the guy that did the B-wing pilot, because to me the demeanor and the facial expression it's basically like if the Rebel Commando put on the crazy red jumpsuit and the helmet. I mean, they're very similar.
And the acetate is a subtractive process as opposed to an additive process. So the wax you build on it, and when you think of a sculptor, you usually think of Michelangelo talking about that he was freeing the figures from the marble, right? Like that's the way that he envisioned it, and so that's how Bill Lemon did it. But in this case, instead of David, we have the B-wing pilot. Is that so? So it's not supposed to. This is the thing: is that I've held however many of these figures in my hand. I've never really looked at the figure. I'm looking at it now. So that's not a that's not a headset. That's just a really strong black chin thing around his.
Yeah, so that's a good question, or the good thing you brought up the headset, because that comes in a little bit later with the coin. But to me, like, he kind of looks like a bizarre, like, Christmas elf cosmonaut looking guy. Like, if someone just picked him up off the street, I don't think they would have any idea that he was a Star Wars character. I really don't. But yeah, it's strange that the helmet, I don't know why, I guess it's because what I had. I just associated that as, it's just their version of an X-Wing helmet. I didn't really even realize that it was, I just thought it looked a little weird. But, yeah, so I don't know if you want to get into the whole headset thing with the coin design yet. This is kind of, we're going gargan here.
Steve, we are only talking about the B-Wing pilot. We have all of our stupid little structure and stuff and chapters, but they don't really matter. People do want us to talk about the figure. They don't really care if we talk about it in order. So you can talk about it however you want. We're just talking about the figure. If you want me to talk more about the figure, the other thing I didn't notice was just how prominent the collar is. And this just seems really impractical. Yeah. Just because the collar's kind of open, and so I wonder if this isn't sort of a joke about this Bill George character, because he's always wearing these polos, and they're open, and
it's true.
And it's it just seems weird. It seems like why is he wearing this very prominent collar? And yeah, he is very rigid. He does seem very much like in a sort of robotic mode. I think that it would be possible to look at this and think that he's a robot. Just to think that, because the flight suit, it looks like a cybernetic, chest plate.
Yes, yeah, it does. It way more than I think any of the other pilot figures. It looks a little more complex. Yeah, it's funny. I think they designed the costume. There's some pretty neat sketches of it, and it just doesn't really translate as well when you put it on an actual human body or an action figure, I guess. But they call that thing the bib, which I kind of thought was funny. It's his bib, not his chest plate.
It's like he's eating. It's like he's eating lobster at the wedding of his co-host.
Yes. Oh man, I should have made some bibs with this pattern on there for Eleanor.
Okay, now here's an idea. So I think for the next archive party, not the virtual one, but the real one, which by the way, apparently we have tickets to Celebration, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
I might actually end up being the chair of my department by then, so I don't know if I'll be able to leave early. So that could be interesting. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. But I think we could make some swag bibs Um,
Yeah, for some kind of eating contest.
yeah.
We're into those, so. Yeah, I don't know. The figure, it's I don't know. To me, I like that the bright red color too really does kind of make him stand out among the Jedi figures. It reminds me of the earlier Star Wars really brightly colored
Yeah, that's a good
figures.
point. Yeah, because
I guess him in the Royal Guard.
yeah, because
But
Star Wars
yeah,
figures had gotten so just earth colory and green and brown. And I mean, think
yeah,
about like Prune Face. Like you compare Prune Face to Hammerhead, right?
right.
And really, it
Yeah.
sort of goes along with some of Ron's theories that he's talked about on the show about how the marketing the packaging just got more and more bland. You know, like the sort of the non-Kenner licensees going to that just silver all the time as opposed to black and interesting colors. And
You talk about the marketing of the ship and the figure together. So I think everyone's probably familiar with the famous painting, or it started with Ralph McQuarrie's painting of the B-wings flying away from the Star Destroyer blowing up, and then they translated that into this composite image that was done by I think ILM artists, that's used on so many different weird Return of the Jedi merchandise. But you just realize that even though it barely shows up on screen, they still marketed the hell out of it because why not? They used it in publicity. They used it. I think even the toy companies, they would use it on some posters and catalogs. It's an image that's not from the movie at all. It's completely just created for marketing. And it's I think the only thing I have in my collection that has that image on it, funnily enough, is this birthday card from the UK, and it just says "Hope your birthday's a blast." And I don't know. There's something that speaks to me with that, and I probably don't need much else with that image. I think that's probably my favorite item that has it on there.
okay,
Yeah.
so we're trying to think of different things that highlight the B-wing pilot. There's of course the B-wing pilot commercial.
Yes. Right.
Which I was going to have us do a like a commercial theater, but I'm not going to. But I will say I will play it. I'll insert it here, and I will say it's got a sort of return to goofy kids playing in the background. If I ever saw this commercial as a kid, I would have begged my parents to buy the B-wing. Do you know why, Steve?
The rotating cockpit.
No.
Okay.
There's a point where it goes in between these trees,
Yes.
and the wings go smaller,
Right.
so it goes through the trees.
Yes.
Probably, no, definitely, when I was a kid, my favorite moment in movie history, even above the point where Luke kills the Rancor, which I loved, was the scene in Octopussy, where Roger Moore flies the plane through the hangar, and then he has to fly it vertical so it's able to go through. I don't know why, but I thought that was, and I would do that with all of my toys all the time. And here's this kid playing with the B-wing, showing that the B-wing really is an amazing toy. It really does have a lot of great playability.
Yes.
And he uses it to go through these two narrow trees, and it really looks like a very fun.
The galaxy explodes. The rebels return. You can relive it all with Kenner's Star Wars Return of the Jedi collection.
The fleet's diving in a hyperdrive. Gotta move it.
New B-wing fighters and B-wing pilot action figures, each sold separately, batteries not included.
Asteroid belt, lowering wings, hold on tight. Our laser cannon. Check. Gyro cockpit stable. Now for some evasive action. We're home free.
New B-wing fighter and B-wing pilot action figures, each sold separately from Kenner's Star Wars Return of the Jedi collection.
Skye here in the editing bay. I just lost 2.5 hours of work, but I don't care. I'm now going to play for you something I just discovered for the first time since 1983. In the middle of that commercial you just heard, there was a swear word. The S word. S-H-I-T double hockey sticks. Right here. Get ready to listen very carefully to the swear in the vintage Kenner commercial.
On sight. Our laser cannon. Check. On sight. Our laser cannon. Check. 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 Check.
Is that it for interesting things with the B-wing pilot, Steve? What more you
Well,
got?
I don't know. Did you write a poem?
Yes, I did.
Oh boy.
It's pretty
All right.
Skye-ish.
Well, I'm already
Whoa.
like envisioning a bidding war with Big Kev for the art.
Do you know how close I was to putting the words "fuck Big Kev" in this Skye-Ku? I really thought about it because I thought that's the only way I can get him from buying it. But then I thought maybe.
Oh, sorry. I gotta get you back in your.
Okay. The red and the black, an optimist in the void. Stars, time, eyes, voice, ears.
Wow, that is very Skye-ish. I like the
Yes.
optimist in the void. That sums me up pretty much.
Yeah, well, you think about all those stars, right? Like you think about the card back art. We might as well start
Sure,
talking about
sure.
that at
Yeah.
some point. So the my main problem with the B-wing pilot and A-wing pilot just
Yeah.
in general and the AT-ST driver, I don't like, and the AT-AT driver.
No, Commander. Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't like it when the action figure doesn't show the actor or the character. I like it when they just show a ship. I don't think it's that
Yeah.
interesting.
So you're
but-
wanting something more like the Cloud Car pilot, where it's this zoomed up little picture of the model in the cockpit.
Yeah, something like that, or I think the AT-AT driver works pretty well. I think the TIE Fighter pilot. Oh no, wait, the TIE Fighter pilot's bad
That's
too.
also
No,
with the TIE
what am I-
fighters. Yeah, the
Yeah.
AT-AT driver is maybe the one driver pilot character that really has his nice headshot on there. But he's probably the most interesting out of all of them, so I get that. But yeah.
But I was looking at the card back art, and I was just thinking about just the sort of emptiness that the B-wing is
Yes.
in. I mean, it really is just flying in space. There's no station nearby. There's no battle. It's not shooting.
He's just lost out there.
it's-
Yeah.
He's out there. so that's how I see him as an optimist in the void.
At this point in the podcast, Steve and I will be discussing the B-wing pilot photo art.
When you look at the art on the card back, it maybe doesn't do that much, but the thing that I think you can really appreciate about it is that all those stars are just hand done little dots on the image, which I don't know. I that was one of those big things that I think that's what tipped me over the edge, was getting that piece, and that was from Tom Nyheisel's list back in the very, very last stages that existed, and I was really, really, hesitant to do it, and I can't say, oh man, I'm glad that I did. I'll say that.
So that was what, 2004, something like that.
That was probably 2005 or 2006, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they used this image of that model in a lot of different images, but so they hand cut out the little ship, got it on the background, which is just black airbrushing, and then they, I'm assuming just a little pointed brush, just did all the little dots for the stars. So it doesn't look all that. It's a lot nicer to look at in person, but yeah, I like I said, the figure was what it was all about for me, but I think that was a really kind of formative collector moment because I really just appreciated the object for what it is.
There was the Skye-Ku, and there was your
Yes.
description of the B-wing pilot card art, and it's another nice thing too is that it's nice when people get good deals on things, and that's just where they're going to be. Like that's what's nice about you getting a good deal on that and getting it when it was at a good price is that like
Yeah.
all right, that works. You're not out there like trying to make a buck. You're not out there exploiting anything. It's just like this means a lot to me, and so I'll get it. And we also, in case you didn't listen to episode number 1 again, it is worth reminding everybody, Steve, of what it is that drew you to the B-wing pilot in the first place.
Well, I guess it's because he was my Luke pilot figure. That he was basically, that's what I saw him as. So
Now, did you
didn't-
actually think he was Luke, or did you just say he'll stand in for Luke?
I'm pretty sure I just thought he was because, like, I'm guessing that when I got the figure, we actually got a couple of them. I've told this story before too, but my mom basically cleared out our local KB Toys in Santa Barbara, and of course there were a bunch of B-wing pilots there, just rotting away. So I had a few of them, but I think I never looked at the card backs aside from maybe that first couple days, and then I'm pretty sure my mom probably just got rid of them. So I didn't associate him. I just figured, oh, this kind of looks like Luke in a pilot outfit. I think that must be what it is. And so that's just what it was for me growing up. I didn't, or, if I had the other one, I'd put the other one in the back of the Snowspeeder and he would be Dak or whatever. He was my all around pilot, but then generally it was Luke. He was just my Luke pilot figure.
It doesn't really matter that it wasn't Luke.
Right.
And it doesn't really look that different. It just kind of, there it is, and that's who you are. I know you've told that story a ton of times, Steve, but still, I mean, that's the famous origin story of the B-Wing.
Well, what's funny too, years later, a few years ago, someone had pointed me to this weird German, I think it was from Parker, this comic book ad that features a B-Wing pilot or multiple B-Wing pilots painted up as X-Wing pilots flying X-Wings. So it's basically what I did. That was his use.
Wait.
So to see it, I sent you this,
thing
right?
That you sent me?
Yes. It's in a series of German ads, but this one.
God, that is what's happening.
That's exactly what's happening. Yeah. And it's I love the description. This must be what an X-Wing sounds like when it's flying through space.
Yes.
But yeah, it's funny that they use the B-Wing pilots for advertising the X-Wing, and then there's actually a B-Wing advertised in the ad as well. So it's I don't know. I always loved this image, and oh my God, if one of those kind of hand painted pilots somehow turned up, I don't know what I would do. I'd lose my mind.
Well, you'd probably win it, and then I would spend the next 20 minutes telling you why it's probably fake. So.
Yeah, and related to that, I think there is, and this is probably my Grail carded figure, there is a Trilogo Luke X-Wing card with a B-Wing pilot attached to it. And I just, that is it. That's him for me.
Right. Wait, that's not from your collection? I saw you send a picture of that.
No. I know of one that was out there. There might be another one or two. But yeah.
Well, if it's from England, Steve, I can get you one by tomorrow. Right. You want a toe?
Mail order.
I'll get you a toe.
Yeah.
That's easy.
No. Yeah. So I love that purportedly exists. I feel like the one example is probably legitimate. I don't know about others.
No, they probably are. I mean, there were plenty of. I mean, they're not really miscards, right? They're just kind of overstock. That's the kind of sense that I get.
They're loosely associated with the card that they're on. Yeah.
Because why would they always be the same? Like I have one of those the Vader Chewbacca things, and there's it's like 10 of those at least out there that survive.
Yeah.
Wow. So you've never even seen one for sale? You just know they exist?
No. Yeah, I knew of one that existed, and I'm not even sure if the collector who had it is still active anymore. See, I'm also really bad at keeping track of things and tracking things down.
Right.
I remember a long time ago saying, hey, if you ever do decide to part with that, I would give it a very, very happy home, and then I never heard anything, so I just kind of left it at that. But yeah, I'm hoping that he still has it. But yeah, anyway, I love that it exists.
Well, Steve, this is your homework, okay? You got to make 2021 a continuation of the year. Steve, you got to contact him again.
Yeah.
Like you got to see and say, hey, I talked about this figure. I realized I haven't asked you this decade, so or the previous decade.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's a reasonable assignment, I think.
'Tis a nugget from the archive. 'Tis a nugget.
Oh my God, they're gorgeous.
From the archive.
Oh my God, they're gorgeous.
What is the nugget, Steve?
So I thought we hadn't talked about wood patterns in a while, and there's a great write-up on the archive from Todd Chamberlain.
Okay, now listen.
that
I like Todd, and I like Star Wars collecting. Okay, but this
Okay.
is my problem. I don't understand wood patterns at all. Do you know how many conversations Ron has had with me where he shows me his wood pattern thing and he explains it to me and I nod my head and I even like ask a follow-up question where I make it seem like I know what he's talking about and I just kind of nod my head. Steve, the toys are made out of plastic. What the hell does it mean, a pattern? A pattern is a repeated thing. Wood patterns are just little hunks of wood sculptures. Why is it called a pattern? Why is it out of wood? What the hell is it, Steve?
I don't think I'll be able to answer all of your questions.
Okay.
So I'm
But
just gonna get that out there right
I'm
now.
just so sick of just hearing people talk about it and nodding my head like I understand what the hell they're talking about.
The only way that helps me kind of wrap my head around it is I just think of wood patterns being associated with anything mechanical in the toys. Anything super mechanical, industrial.
Then
so
why
the
is it
ships,
called wood pattern, Steve? It'd be like, oh, yeah.
You're
This is what
getting
we
hung
call...
up on the words, and it's made out of wood. I guess maybe the word pattern is throwing you off. I don't know.
It'd be like if you told me like desert tanks, like a tank that worked in the desert, and what you called it was a moist sponge, and you'd be like, well, it's a desert tank, right? Yeah, but we just call it a moist sponge because that's how it is. All right. So, what is a wood pattern, Steve? This is turning into a vintage vocab.
Yeah, semi vocab, semi nugget. Basically, I'll try just a very, very high level explanation is that for things like the ships, for things like R2's leg, a lot of those parts for the toys were let's not say patterned out of wood, but let's just say they were created and machined from pieces of wood, and with the B-wing, or at least the surviving portion of it, it's just part of one of the wings. It was made out of cherry wood, and then what they would do is add on detail with Bondo putty. So a lot of the little details are not actually made out of wood at all, but they, beyond that, I think it was just a matter of the tools that were used and just the way it translated into these mechanical shapes that made sense. I don't know what beyond that I could really say that would help you.
Well, maybe I should just straight up read from Chris Georgoulias's article.
That's probably the best. Yeah,
right.
There's a link to that in here.
There's a link to that. This is one of the great marble background pages on the Star Wars Collectors Archive. This is part of the reason why when we talk about why we're proud of this show representing that website, that's why. Because of articles like this laid the foundation for anybody knowing what the hell is going on, even though I have read this article 3 or 4 times and I still don't know. That's not Chris Georgoulias' fault. Okay, pattern. I'm not going to try to read it in a Chris Georgoulias. For some reason, whenever I do an imitation of Chris Georgoulias, it turns into a Ron imitation. It turns into a John Alvarez imitation. It's just
all
people,
the voices start to come together.
It's just people who say "man" a lot, but not you.
Not
you
me.
say "man." You say "oh man," but it's very different. Okay, pattern. Whereas sculptings were used to capture the essence of organic objects, patterns were used to create toys of weapons, ships, or other mechanical things. Most patterns are wooden forms that are meticulously crafted to represent the final shape. All vehicles were patterned. All figure weapons were patterned. Most playsets, like the Death Star, Cantina, Droid Factory, and other non-organic playsets, were patterned. For comparison's sake, like Dagobah at Land of Jawas, were sculpted. Patterning requires meticulous attention to detail in cases such as the Millennium Falcon or the Sandcrawler. Every small detail and protrusion seen in those vehicles was added by hand. Once the basic shape was established, the pattern makers would begin the tedious process of adding the minute details. Bigger details would be made of wood and glued onto the main form. Very small details could be made of Bondo and attached to the wooden form. To give an idea of the scope of the project such as this, it took Kenner pattern makers weeks of solid work to add all the small details on a ship such as the Millennium Falcon. Oftentimes, patterns were created at a larger scale than the actual toy would be produced in. The large scale makes it easier for the pattern makers to do the detailing. Once the pattern is complete, an epoxy mold is made from it. Then, from this mold, a urethane copy is produced. The final copy is the tooling master. It will serve as the pattern used for cutting. Whoa. This final copy, called the tooling master, and it will serve as the pattern used for cutting the steel mold to produce the toy. So it's kind of like a hard copy.
I think, yeah, in a way. That's a good,
But it's
probably
still,
a good comparison.
And it's urethane. Okay. The shape of the tooling master can be directly conveyed to a milling machine by a pantograph, which also allows the scale to be altered as the steel is cut. So a pantograph is one of those weird like pen things that follows along the shape, and then you can recreate it in a different
Translates.
size.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think my problem has always been the word pattern. So
That's yeah.
This is another aside here. My brother Amos, a friend of the show, artist and stuff, he uses the word pattern all the time, but for no discernible reason. Like,
Okay.
if you ask him, like, he doesn't ask you, "What are you doing today?" He'll say, like, "What's the pattern?" And he'll just constantly ask me questions and use the term pattern to refer to anything. So
Maybe that's factoring into this just a little bit.
maybe some of it is. Like, well, I'm not sure, what the pattern is on these hot dogs. So, what? Okay, so it shouldn't be called a wood pattern. Just be called a wood sculpt. Why don't we call it a wood sculpt?
Yeah, see, I think that's the hang up. It's paralleling the word sculpting and sculpt with pattern and patterning. You have to separate the organic and the mechanical. That's the only way I can look at it.
Yeah, but then you have Bill Lemon sculpting
Right.
mechanical figures.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's true.
Where's your God now, Chris Dragulias? Right? I mean, how right? How are we supposed to? There's okay. All right. So
Yeah.
So you're trying to tell me there exists a wood pattern for the B-wing?
Yeah, so it's not the complete ship. It's just part of it. It's just one. I think I can't remember if it's the top or the bottom wing. It's one of the halves of the ship, and it's I think maybe another surviving piece may be out there with Gus. I feel like he might have the other half of it, but yeah. So it's. I like most of all. I love the picture and the title of this archive entry. Not many archive entries have subtitles. This one is B-wing fighter wood pattern prototype from the heavens, a sail blessed by Jesus Christ himself.
Wow.
And the very first image, it's a nice classic picture of Todd with his NASA T-shirt and flannel with the original. Designer of the pattern, and then there's the portrait of Jesus kind of overlooking them in the background. But yeah, it's I've been lucky to see this in Todd's collection. It's really cool to see it. Like we were saying, not many of these. I think it's a really destructive process, and therefore not many of these actual things survive. So the fact that the one are part of it for
because
the
Bondo is not that successful isn't that well attached, right? Like that breaks off fairly
There's not a lot of
easily.
Yeah, I wouldn't say permanence is something you'd attribute to the way these were made. So for that, I think it's neat that it does survive. So yeah, that's a long way around a nugget and a vocab, but it's mainly, yeah, I just wanted to show some appreciation for the title of the archive entry.
Well, Steve, if there's a nugget, there must always be a Unloved.
Yeah. So I kind of cheated with this, and I used Unloved and the Unnatural to get another another item in there.
All right.
So the Unloved, I'm sure we've talked about this crazy thing before, but it is the bootleg weird knockoff toy, the futuristic power Silver Striker.
Silver Striker. Wow.
Yeah. So this weird kind of multi-purpose vehicle, I came across it. I think it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It was on eBay from Italy, and the artwork on this toy box has all sorts of crazy things going on. Namely, well, there's multiple toy lines, right? So there's what's his name, Clawful from Masters of the Universe. He's kind of like the muscle. I guess I don't know if he's driving or if he's just up there yelling. He's at the top of this weird tank thing, and then
it's like a tank with guns on, but like not a single gun in the middle, like guns on the side.
Yeah,
And we have Clawful.
bright
And we don't
gold.
say Masters of the Universe. He's Clawful from He-Man, okay? We're not
He-Man.
We're not
Sorry.
going to, like, play to their games, okay? Like,
Okay.
that's a He-Man
See,
toy.
I don't know all the semantics with that. That's not my yeah. So I'm glad you're yeah, making the.
I'm striking out against He-Man collectors because it's He-Man. Just it's not Masters of the Universe. It's He-Man. Okay.
Can it be He-Man and the Masters of the Universe? Is that the official title?
I don't know.
I'm not gonna. Nah, we don't need to worry about that. Anyway, it's Clawful up top, and then on the back there's an Imperial snowtrooper that has some nice gold plating. He must be the back gunner, and then in the front, in this little pod, is a B-wing pilot with a Gordy type visor over his face.
Right.
So I'm not sure. I'm assuming. I'm just gonna say he's driving the thing. I don't know.
Definitely.
Yeah, he's the pilot. So
He's the pilot, and he's like the nerd that everyone else is pushing around.
Right. Yeah. So it's another just completely bizarre, reappearance of this figure that I guess it speaks to his kind of utility. You can plug him in just about anywhere and it works. So I don't know. I got this. I think I paid maybe $50 or $60 for it. It cost more to ship, I think, than to buy the thing. And I didn't think it would actually show up, but it did. And I think there's a picture you always use for the show.
Yeah.
It's you and I holding this weird thing.
Yeah. The kids and I came out to visit you in California. I think in 2014. Might have been right after.
It probably was. Yeah.
It might have been right around the time that you got it, actually.
I think so. Yeah.
And we were just and I'm holding on to it, and I think Digby's there.
Digby's in there. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it also makes sense to me that thinking about this now, I'm pretty sure these were sold at KB and other types of like kind of bargain toy stores. I think I had posted this on Rebel Scum back when I got it, and I think someone had posted something along the lines of, "Oh yeah, I remember seeing a whole stack of these on the junk table at KB." I'm like, "Oh, that makes sense." They probably had the bin of B-wing pilots right next to it. But yeah, it's a bizarre knockoff. And I don't know, the fact that there's 2 vintage Star Wars figures in there is pretty cool to me. And they advertise that it's Star Wars compatible, along with G.I. Joe or whatever else. But
okay, one second here.
Yeah.
Wow, Steve, this is super cool. We should talk about it on the next Skye-Cast. Post reply. Okay. So I just posted for the first time in Rebel Scum in probably 3 years. So there we go.
Oh man, it's gonna bring it right back at the top. Wow,
that's what I'm saying. Now people are gonna be like, "Hey, what's this thing?" It's gonna come back. So there you go.
Yeah.
We're bringing it back, baby.
Yes.
Because
I also
a lot of people are breaking off of Facebook and going on to whatever weird alt-right Facebook and people on Facebook, they're too mad about this and that. If we all just went back to Rebel Scum, we wouldn't have to worry about politics. We could just talk about Star Wars toys.
It's just I don't know who's still living in the castle, but let's just storm it and take back over.
Yeah.
It might be empty. I don't know.
All right, so that's your unloved item, Steve.
It is.
That's sort of more of just a weird item. I don't know if it's really
It is.
unloved, okay.
Yeah, maybe that should have been the unnatural. But one other quick note: I think Ron posted in that thread that he describes this guy as the B-wing pilot's cooler older brother, which.
You see, I disagree. I disagree with Ron. First, I disagree that the term pattern is the correct term for the thing.
Yeah.
I don't care what the right term is. It's not correct. But I don't think he is. I think he just is the B-wing pilot. Like, I think the B-wing pilot is just like a guy who's like, oh, okay, I guess I gotta drive Clawful around now. Like, Clawful... And I sort of imagine, like, Clawful getting picked off and sniped at some point, and then the B-wing pilot has to save the day.
Yeah, no, I that makes sense.
Okay, but now I have accidentally clicked on your unnatural item, and this is something else, Steve. Tell me about this.
All right. Well, this goes back to an earlier discovery that I know we talked about on an episode in the past. A couple years ago, I guess it was just last year, this display for Underoos popped up on the Return of the Jedi Facebook group, and the key thing about this display is that it has the B-Wing image from the B-Wing pilot cardback art as the main thing, blasting an explosion that says "New Underoos." Underwear that's fun to wear. I'm like, why would a B-Wing just be randomly appearing on an Underoos display? I love this thing. It's absolutely amazing. So I backtracked and I figured, all right, there must be a B-Wing on some Underoos somewhere. And there is. There's the Luke Skywalker Underoos from Return of the Jedi. I absolutely need these.
You don't have this, Steve?
I don't. No. I gotta find this. There's so many things that make no sense about this image that was printed on these Underoos. So it's Jedi Luke. His expression. How would you describe this look on Luke's face?
It's a cross between Garth and John McCain. I hate to say it, Steve, but I have nailed it entirely. He's making a McCain face and a Garth face.
Yes.
I've never seen this expression on Luke. It is Luke in absolute Jedi gear.
Right.
It's a very moving picture of him. He's got an interesting expression. Never seen this image before. Super looks like it's painted on the side of a Van Skywalker with it's all reflective and metallic.
Yes. And then there's a random B-Wing flying around him, and then Darth Vader's TIE Fighter. Two things that really have absolutely nothing to do with Luke in Return of the Jedi.
But it's a B-Wing shooting Darth Vader's TIE Fighter.
Yes.
And that's the other thing. Is the B-Wing supposed to be a bomber or not? The Y-Wings are the bombers. The B-Wings are not?
I don't think so. The way that the storyboards depict it, and I think they ended up going with this whenever they brought it back in the cartoons, they kind of shoot a single laser, concentrated laser beam thing, not I don't know what you want to call that, but they're not. I don't think they're bombers. I think they're meant to destroy things pretty easily, but not with bombs. So whatever's going on here, I don't know. It's bizarre, but I absolutely love it.
Yep, never seen this expression on Luke. Never seen anything other than an X-Wing chasing a TIE fighter. Never seen Darth Vader's TIE fighter being chased. It's just so many things, all with Underoos as well.
Yes, and it's on Underoos. That's what makes it. I don't know. That takes it beyond.
I had the Chewbacca Underoos, and I told the story a few times, but it was a birthday gift for my ex-wife. Well, at the time she was my wife, and I made her get them for me AFA. I'm like, I just want there to be evidence that I've never opened them and never wore them.
Right, that's right. I remember.
Although for the next archive party, we are going to have an Underoo fashion, just strip off kind of thing. Okay.
Right. Yeah. It'll go great.
Yeah.
But I think I was going to say, I think you do see B-Wings and TIE Interceptors a lot, kind of in the same pairing that you would see the old X-Wing and Darth Vader's TIE. So there's images of that they used on things, but never the mix of the two. So that's what's really strange about this.
Yeah, and it does sort of indicate this weird need for B-Wing representation by the Underoos. That's funny.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
You did talk about a market watch, but Steve, I have one prepared for you.
Oh no.
Okay. So let's see. First of all, there was a B-Wing pilot that I mocked on the mock group because I couldn't help myself. Someone posted this B-Wing pilot for what was it, $800?
$795 or best offer.
Or best offer, and it was just a Return of the Jedi B-Wing pilot, and it was it had a clear bubble, but that was about it. And he just got so indignant that anybody would say anything bad about this figure. He was just saying that it's just the most pristine thing. He was just falling over himself describing how beautiful it was. Okay, Steve. So $1 Vlix Market Watch. First question. What, let's say just a standard 79, wait, was it introduced on the 79 or 77, Steve?
77. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then, in that case, well, let's see. Do we have any 77s on here? Okay, yes. Let's go
All right.
here with a standard, good condition, slightly yellow bubble, 77 back figure. Let's see. With an Alexander's sticker. I don't know what Alexander's is.
Alexander's. Okay.
It's unpunched. It's definitely in, it's in good condition, although the bubble is a little bit yellow. What's your guess, Steve? If you are within $10, you get dig bucks, which are like dollars for Steve.
Okay. Let's see. Why don't we go with $50?
Steve, $134.99.
What?
That's right.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. That's, because it used to be that B-Wing pilots you could just basically always get for $30, right?
That was kind of the standard rate.
I imagine you could, but this is unpunched. It's in pretty good condition. So
yeah. Okay. So the debut card. That's okay.
Okay. Now an AFA 85.
Ooh.
B-Wing pilot loose.
Oh God. I have no idea. Why don't we say? Let's go with $88.
Steve, you're not getting any dig bucks. $125.
Jeez.
Yes.
I don't know, man. Maybe the 795 godlike creature that was for sale is not as unreasonable as we might think.
Yeah. Maybe it wasn't. Okay. All right. Now let's go for something a little bit different here.
All right.
Let's go for a complete B-Wing pilot with the box. So opened, not sealed, but complete.
Okay, so this is the Kenner, just the regular standard one. I don't know. Why don't we go $195?
Close. $205. Okay. Steve gets a dig bucks.
I get something. All
you
right.
Get a dig buck. All right. All right. Now I think we'll just do one last one, Steve, because I think this is something that you don't have.
Okay.
And I'm very curious about it because I think it's something you would want.
Okay.
A KB Toy Store vintage 2-pack with IG-88 and the B-Wing pilot.
I do not have any 2-packs with the B-Wing pilot. That's
they,
pretty cool.
Are they rare or?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I feel like maybe you don't see them that often. I don't think I've seen that many with the B-Wing pilot. So I would guess probably on the rare side.
Okay.
So this is one that sold with
IG-88. It's in pretty good whatever. It's a 2-pack. So it's actually not good condition. The bubble's all messed up and there's a crease. And it cost $1.99 when it was first sold for the 2-pack.
Yeah. That's a steal. Why don't we say 225?
Oh, my sweet summer child. $1,136.
Okay, that's all right. I'm gonna go and check and see if that $795 figure is available.
It's still available. That's a steal.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Dang, that's the crazy 2-pack angle that I guess I've never. I don't know. I've never completely followed or understood. So maybe I guess I was right. Maybe they are tough to find.
Well, that makes me happy because I always felt like I overpaid for my 2-packs because everybody told me I overpaid for the 2-packs.
Yeah.
But now I'm realizing I didn't. I got the Han and Chewie, the Han trench coat and Chewie, and I paid like $500 for it, and it was like outrageous and scandalous. I think that's even more desirable than IG-88 and the B-Wing pilot. Oh, Steve, could you imagine if it was Chewie and the B-Wing pilot?
Oh, I don't know. We would have to just, I don't know, have joint custody.
Oh, totally. No, we had joint custody. We'd be like the Lemcools. Exactly like the Lemcools. We'd have to move to the same town.
Right.
We'd have to just basically share. I think what we do is we just every year we just send it to each other and just be like, "This is your year, don't it?"
Oh man, that would be something.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, hey, I guess I didn't do completely horribly.
No, you got
mostly horribly.
You got one, basically.
I got one. Yeah, I thought I would fare worse.
So looking at this does seem like there's more things to discuss. Steve, what is there anything else you want to discuss? Do you have to go put Eleanor to bed? How you doing?
I've still got some time. I think we've hit all the main segments, but I thought I don't know. I don't need to go through my whole collection and all that. I don't think that's all that exciting, but maybe just a handful of the more interesting things. You'd mentioned the thing about the headset, which made me think about the coin, and this is probably, if I had to pick one favorite item in the collection, it would definitely be the original art for the Power of the Force coin.
Really, even more than the photo art.
I think so, because I don't know, because it's more like you were saying, it represents the character and not the ship,
right.
And the expression on it is so completely different than what was made. I think that's another thing that I like a lot about it. It's, I don't know. So to get to the headset part of it. So the original drawing features this goofy looking guy in the B-Wing pilot outfit, and it doesn't have any headset or anything. It just has the little chin strap that's on the figure.
Right.
And so I'd had this for a couple years, and then a few years ago there was that.
So you've had the original art for. So this is like the hand drawn pencils, is that right?
Yeah, so it's done in pencil on vellum, and then that is glued to basically an outline of the coin shape with the text that's done in a more mechanical printing style that's hand applied. But the artwork has the pilot and then the ship on the left.
Right.
And I think that was 2013, because I knew it existed. I didn't know who had it, and then we went to go visit Seattle, and then I walk in, and then of course there it is, sitting in Gus's collection room, and I couldn't believe that it was there, and of course, never thinking that there was any chance of ever having it. Brock figured out a way to help me get it by the end of the weekend, which I don't know. It's one of my favorite collecting memories, and just the insanity of it all, because it made the weekend all of a sudden extremely nerve-wracking and stressful, but also really fun and exciting, and that's kind of like, it's basically like when you go to Celebration or any of these things, that's kind of the vibe. It's really tense and exciting, and then also you're trying to relax. So
right.
It's a bit of both.
Well,
but,
I remember how freaked out you were. You were really on edge, and you were talking about getting it, and were you going to get it? And yeah. Yeah,
that was kind of the last big thing, and I kind of knew then, like, that's probably it for me. Like, I think I'm done. But anyway, so the original design doesn't have a headset, and so a couple years later, there was a find of some coin-related paperwork that I think it was Tom Derby that sold most of it. And one of the sheets that was in there was for the B-Wing pilot. So it has a photocopy of this artwork, and then it has a sign-off sheet with comments and approval signatures and things like that. And one of the notes, let me just pull it up here, it says, change strap, work on eyes. And what someone had done was, in pen, I think it was pen, they just hand scribbled in a little headset to his mouth over the copy. So that does show up in the final coin design. He has his little mouthpiece there, and so I kind of thought
on this copy there is like literally just someone drawing with pen on it.
Yes, yeah. So if you look at it, you'll see he's got just a little scribbled in headset or mouthpiece by his chin strap.
This reminds me of when Trump tried to show where the hurricane was going to go, and he drew on with the Sharpie. Like, you see, we initially thought it was going to go this way.
Right.
And then in the final coin, yeah, we should get Yehuda on here sometime to explain how it goes from these drawings to the final coin, because I don't quite understand, right? Because it's not an exact copy. Are these just like reference photos? Or
I think they were basically a reference for whoever was sculpting the coin. So the face is much different. He looks a little older, a little gruffer, more gruff, grumpier, a little more battle hardened, maybe, I don't know. But he does have there's a little mouthpiece attached to it that, like the note said, which I always thought was kind of cool.
yeah, actually looking at the coin, it really looks a lot more like a pilot, right? Like you have this. The flight suit it doesn't look like the toy where it looks like he's just wearing a polo shirt. This time, like you see that he has the strap, the chin strap is undone, and he has the thing, and he looks kind of like a cool old man, like sort of like a Chuck Yeager-y sort of character.
Yeah, he looks more like a World War II pilot, which I'm guessing that's probably what they were really going for, but it just didn't quite work. But yeah, he's got more of an actual pilot vibe than, I guess, the original art. It almost looks more like a high school wrestler to me. He's got
the original art just looks like you. That's why it's always so weird. It just looks so much like you. It is unsettling to the point where I'm like, is this some kind of like hoax? Because it just looks like you. But I think it's what's called the Captain America corollary, where anything with a chin strap looks stupid. So I think that's what this is. That just the B-wing pilot without the chin strap looks like a pretty cool dude, but then you put that chin strap on, and it's just like,
yeah, he's a different guy. Maybe the original is when the war started, and the final one is after the war is over.
So if you could imagine, if the cardback art was this really cool image of this World War II looking fighter with his chin strap off and his headset on, I don't know. I think it'd be a much more popular, because you're totally right. The coin itself makes him look like he is actually a World War II fighter. Whereas this actual toy, he just looks sort of like a Battlestar Galactica nerd,
Yeah.
Chain strap, work on eyes. Yeah, that's what it says.
Yeah, I don't know, there's a mention of sea tissue. There must have been some other piece of this that's lost, but I don't know if that meant if they're referring to just the art because it's kind of on a tissue-like paper. I don't know what that one means, but it was approved with changes. So I think there's a lot of them that were probably rejected altogether or reworked, but this one, it just had some minor aesthetic things that they wanted to tweak.
Well, and then as we like to do, we like to actually quote the coin.
Right.
Even the copy on the back here is just desperately boring. Courageous rebel flyer who pilot reminds me of that line from Solo. I'm a flyer. I'm a driver. Okay. That's up there for favorite bad lines in a Star Wars movie. I'm a driver. I'm a flyer. I'm a dryer. I'm a supplier. I'm a skater. Okay. Okay. I'm a baller. Courageous rebel flyer who piloted the spectacular B-wing fighter during the final rebel assault of the Empire's last Death Star. It's just like spectacular B-wing fighter. Yeah. Although it is interesting making reference to the Empire's last Death Star.
Yeah.
Little did they know a little thing called the Star Killer base.
Yeah, the last, for now.
Yeah.
The most recent Death Star. It's, I don't know, somehow the word spectacular doesn't really do its job.
No.
But yeah. So yeah, that's a fun little design change thing to note. I don't know. In terms of other things, there's a lot of goofy stuff that I think it's always made me happy to think about with my connection to the figure or the character. I feel like, I've got a couple of great birthday cards with hand-done art. One of them, I think I sent you two of them. One of them was from Brock's son, from a couple years back, and it pretty much perfectly captures the B-wing pilot.
Yep, that's definitely a good one.
And then this year Tessa made one, which also there's something. It just it makes sense. It also really reminded me of I think I didn't have a picture of this handy, but we talked about this I think in the virtual archive party where you were hand drawing a bunch of characters on the archive party sponsor folders, and when I saw this, I immediately thought of that. Like there is something that translates into pretty much every drawing of this figure that's always there.
Yeah, something about his expression. It just really
expression.
is a derpy expression. I mean, before the word derp existed, he was derpy, and that's why again I go back to the actual coin sculpt. Just how much how much it doesn't look like him, because he just doesn't look derpy. He looks like a real hero.
Yeah. He's a doesn't do him justice. But another kind of fun memory. I think this was at Celebration 6. It was one of the Orlando celebrations. They do those collector swap meets one night during the convention, and you had bought me the Hamilton B-wing plate.
Yes.
So I was like, oh man, it's okay. Like, and then I think you insisted, like, no, you need to own this.
Well, because how many B-wing things are there? And then just those crappy Hamilton plates that were advertised our whole youth. Yeah. Just like, they're collectible because they're collectible. Do you know how you know they're collectible? It's because we say they're collectible. Right. And this is just a hideous, awesome.
It's the quintessential Hamilton plate.
Yep.
And it has the model from the photo art as well, which I like. That it is the same basic. The basis of it is the same as the figure card back.
And you're making the basic Steve look at me that you normally make, the sort of oh man look. I think this was right before we took you to speed dating, before you met Tessa.
Right, that's right. Yeah, I didn't make it into the door. I think I finally made a stand.
Yeah. And then of course you also sent a picture of the Digby wing pilot. Which I think it is possible now to have a Digby wing pilot focus. We've made enough. Now that the archive party is enough of an institution, there's like 3 items now at least, right?
So there's this actually never got made as an item, but this is where it started. So Jared Clark did basically this is like, I think of this as like where our parody card backs really began.
Yeah.
Well, I guess this must have been after the manatees, but it's basically Digby's head pasted on a probably one of these Polaroids of a B-wing pilot, or it might just be some guy at Celebration. I don't know, but it's great. It just makes me happy that exists. And then
we have the sculpture of it. We have the patch. I think there might have been a poster at some point made. Probably,
yeah. It's absurd. Just because Digby is an absurd dog, I don't know. It also just always reminds me of doing the archive party and how much that kind of means to us and to the show. And I don't know. That's one of those items. Like if we had a shrine, it would have the 2-pack, and then it would have, some of this archive party related stuff in there that may not mean or make any sense to anyone else, but it does to us anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, good. There's a Anakin offer B-wing pilot that sold for $36. So
all right. The barometer is not totally out of whack.
Yep. Awesome, Steve. Well, this has been very tight, very good. I think just talking about one figure. I think this has been a good episode. I think it's a good way to do it. Just kind of be wandering through the B-wing pilot. We're sort of. Eventually, Steve, every time I edit the podcast, I have to trick my computer into opening the system that I use to edit it.
That sounds terrifying.
Yes. Like, literally every time, because I'm using a version of GarageBand from 2010, because they made one that does not facilitate enhanced podcasting. And as
Yeah,
far as I know,
okay.
there's no way to do it this old way anymore. I'm an old wood pattern maker, and everything's all digital now. So, like, literally every month, I never know if GarageBand is going to open again. So, I'm thinking we might at some point transition to an easier form of podcasting, like
Yeah.
whatever the one is that you do. Because you don't write code every time you release your podcast, do you?
No, I don't. Thankfully, yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the visual quality that this does.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we'll figure.
it's
Yeah. Or maybe Steve, we could do like live video, right?
oh boy, where's the Rusciano?
Yeah, we could do it.
Oh man,
And just
that's all I
have the
have to
images
say.
ready and like flash them up. I think we could do it, Steve. This could be it. 2021. All right, cool. All right, well, I want to get to bed. I want to let you get to bed, and you got to get Ellie down to bed. So,
I think our perfect transition, just to close it out on a high note.
Yes.
Speaking of like 2010, I love that you still use you're just keeping the old system alive to keep the podcast alive.
Yes, it's true.
But one of the very first kind of fan images it relates to the next character, and I never would have thought about this back then when we were doing this, but the next character is Skye-Ku Skiff, and there was this whole side story about the B-wing pilot and Skye-Ku Skiff guard disguise
that's right.
Jared wrote and did a whole story on. So I'll include the old thread or the old post in the show notes, but it's just this hilarious image of the B-wing pilot, substituted in whatever Skye-Ku Skiff is on screen. And Chris Wilkins actually made me a custom figure of this, and it sits right there alongside the rest of the collection. I think I have it because it was from the same celebration. I have it next to the Hamilton plate, so it's like that's what I love about all of it. There's a goofy side to it that means a lot. So Skye-Ku Skiff is next. I don't know how much more boring we can get, but I'm gonna try.
We're gonna keep trying.
We're gonna keep trying.
All
right.
Wampa wampa.
Adios.
But this Star Wars early bird certificate packet is in stores with its colorful Star Wars picture display set and certificate to send you to get a set of
This podcast